You excited? He's excited. He knows. Awesome. See, 9 years ago, a woman named Lauren Faust, she was working for Hasbro, and she started meeting one of the chief executives for the divisions, for the shows, and she was pitching this show, and the people, they were like, cool, it's a nice show, we kind of like it. And then they gave her a little USB, and they said, have you ever heard of My Little Pony? And she says, yeah, you know, when I grew up, My Little Pony was my favorite toy. It was, you know, a big part of my childhood, and she had a huge connection with it. So she takes home the USB, she starts to watch some of the sample content that they had, and she gets home, and when she gets home, she says, whoa, dude, this is pretty good. But I think it could get a little better. They were just working with some of the initial, you know, very, very basic trailer, the first part of the show. And she says, look, you know what, I think I can work with this. Hasbro says that they want her to work with this. And 9 years ago, that was the birth of My Little Pony. Now, this show has changed my life so much, and it's gone on and on throughout the years, up until last night. So yesterday, was the last episode of My Little Pony. After hundreds of episodes, 9 seasons of shows, over the past 9 years, it just ended. And there's just so much to unpack from it, and it's fundamentally changed everything in my life. And I'm going to combine that throughout this seminar with some of the insane principles and tactics and strategies and secrets from Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. This combination of social skills, of development, of growth is just insane. And so that's sort of the story behind My Little Pony, where it came from, and we'll get started with the How to Win Friends and Influence People Friendship Seminar. So a little bit about me before we get started and why, like, this is so freaking cool. So a long time ago, like, I was just a total loser. In middle school, like, very long time ago, but I had, like, no friends. I had basically nothing going for me, like, really fat kid. I was a total loser. It was pretty bad. And the only thing that, like, got me motivated was a little bit before all this started. My parents, they got divorced. And so when they got divorced, I kind of realized, like, I had to figure something out in my life. I had to figure something out with people I was working with and figure out a way to, like, actually do something. And so time goes by, and high school kind of tries to start right around here. And I find My Little Pony. And they had a couple seasons out. And, you know, I start to go through it. And it was crazy because, like, you'd watch an episode of this show for, like, girls, right? And then I would go to school the next day and start to apply it and do, like, the principles, apply the lessons from that show. And, like, all of a sudden, start to make friends. Start to influence people. It was insane. And it was just this huge epiphany for me that, like, whoa, you know, you can, like, actually work on social skills. Then I started, you know, I got my first minimum wage job at Subway and started really honing in on those social skills for about a year, just getting in front of more people. And that's a huge part of developing it. But what My Little Pony and what Dale Carnegie has done has really put that on steroids. And, you know, if you have, like, a normal growth curve going up and up with this content, it is just, you start here, but then it just goes so much faster. And so in the next, you know, 3 days, what I really want to do is take you, you know, this process took me 3-4 years. I want to take you on this entire journey in just 3 short days. So that's the goal for this seminar, and I'm super excited about it, because as soon as I started consistently watching and applying this show, and as soon as I studied this book for hours, night after night for like half a year, 6 months, a year. I mean, just started to grow. And, you know, all of a sudden, I had the courage to quit my first minimum wage job, started to trade stocks full time, which has changed my life and the lives of so many students that I teach in that aspect. And then I started my first startup, and we're leading a team with tons of employees, and the only way that happens is with solid teamwork and solid social skills that allow me to create an insane amount of value in the marketplace, and it all stemmed from these social skills. And these are so cool, you know, if you're doing a startup, or if you're, you know, doing your own thing, or if you're working, you know, a job, an employee, whatever, because these social skills, from what I've seen, like, hiring people, and what I've heard from entrepreneurs that I work with that have hundreds of employees, is that this idea of social skills is, like, the number one thing I mean, I've literally seen, a lot of colleges when I was trying to figure out, where to go to college, pitching, soft skills, social skills as like a selling point for their college, and they're selling, hundreds, thousands of dollars of courses over the course of 4 years. And so I really, really want to get through like the 80% or the 20% that's going to get you the 80% of results in the next 3 days. So that's the goal with this seminar, and I'm super, super excited about it because this stuff is game-changing. It's insane. So with that said, let's get into a little bit of the characters that we're going to be working with over the next couple of days, just so that you guys know who they are. So first one on the top right is Princess Celestia. She's like basically the monarch, the ruler of the whole land, and she runs everything pretty much. And then as you sort of go from left to right of the main six ponies, on the far left in blue you have Rainbow Dash, in white is Rarity, in yellow is Fluttershy, purple is Twilight, orange is Applejack, and pink is Pinkie Pie, and then the little dragon is Spike. So just as I refer to these guys throughout, those are the people, and you'll learn the names as we go on. So yeah, and what's cool is like, we're going to develop, their characters and their backstories. But what they did with this show is like, it's just so crazy because like and they're like the attractive characters, and they have such a deep personality, and you just form a really, it's crazy, the connection you form, because they're pretty complex. So we'll start to learn more about that. And then Dale Carnegie, freaking coolest guy ever. He grows up on a farm in like the middle, I think is like middle nowhere. And what he does is he goes to very, very, very minimal amount of initial education. Middle school, high school, small, just not a whole lot of it, But then he gets to college, and he says, look, he's going to apply himself in college, and he has to commute on horseback to get to college, which is just ridiculous. And he was like one of the 8 kids in his entire class that didn't actually live in the town and wasn't actually like, because there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids here, he was like one of the few people that had to commute because his family didn't have enough money to actually make it happen. They didn't have enough cash so that he could not live on the farm. So he comes to college, and then he goes home, and he has to milk cows, he has to go work the fields, and then in the morning he wakes up, he feeds the pigs. I mean, he's living in a lot, like bare bones poverty for a lot of the beginning of his life. And as he commutes on horseback to college and back, he starts to realize that like he really wants something huge in his life. And for him, he decided that the best way he could do that was to join debate club. So he joined debate club and started getting into public speaking. And it was really cool at the beginning. He just kept growing and growing and growing from that. And since then, he got out of college. He went to sell soap. He had a sales job. And he turned what was the lowest performing region in the entire state he was working in into the highest performing region just by pure grit, literally jumping on train cars and then getting to a town and then jumping off the train car, selling like 4 people on the product, getting back on the train car, and then like milking horses so that he could go through the freight car to the next town. And that's what he did for years and years and years, and became one of the highest performing salesmen. But he quit that. He went to New York, and then he went to college for dance for like a couple of years, and he realized that he wasn't really going to be a performer. And so he just started selling again, selling for automobile companies, and just really getting in front of people. Years and years and decades of experience with social skills. And he took that and he started teaching YMCA classes on how to win friends and influence people for the business sphere. And the YMCA, initially, they didn't really want him, but he forced his way in on a commission basis, and he became one of the top performing classes, top performing seminars in the state of New York for the entire program. And ever since then, he's written his books that have been ridiculously huge sellers over the past 100 years, and launched the Dale Carnegie Foundation. So he's taught tons and tons of courses on that space, and ever since he got out of the YMCA, he's just been doing his own thing and been uber successful with that until he died, because he's a really, really old guy, which is why it's cool that he wrote this book. So with that said, we're going to get out of here, and we'll start getting into the content. If you don't want to gather honey, don't kick over the beehive. Really basic first part of how to win friends and influence people. And it all comes down to this like basic idea of don't be a total jerk if you want to succeed, right? And at the beginning, it's interesting because a lot of people, they go into situations and they're focused on themselves. You got to focus on other people, right? And as soon as you can focus on the other person and be nice to that person, all of a sudden, you're going to get whatever you want, but you don't focus on what you want, right? There's this line here, and what you focus on is what the other person wants, not what you want. Because if you focus on what you want, you're going to kick over the beehive, be a jerk. It's not going to help you get to what the other person desires. And we see that applied in the first episode of My Little Pony. It came out so long ago. So with that said, it all kind of starts in, there's this city called Canterlot, and that's where Twilight's from. She is being mentored under Celestia, who's like the leader of the entire world. And so they're working together to develop her skills, and she's getting better and better and better at whatever she loves to do, which is awesome, right? And so, Twilight says she's going to send her over to this new place far away called Ponyville. And what's cool is this is where she's grown up, like her whole life she's been here. And you move somewhere, you stop going to this original place, you have to get out of your comfort zone, move to this new land. And that's exactly what she does really early on. She focuses, Celestia focuses on what's best for her. And so she goes on this huge journey over to this new place in Ponyville. And her job is to go and lead the sunset celebration, right? So every 1,000 years, or every year, they have this sunset celebration. And what happens is there's this moon, right? So you see this moon. There's a pony trapped in the moon, right? So they have this old tale, 1,000 years ago, Celestia, who was the leader, fought her sister, and her sister turned rogue, her sister turned evil. Basically, the way it worked is Celestia would raise the sun, and then the sister, Luna, would raise the moon. And so Celestia got all the glory, all the bask in the day, and then the sister, Luna, she got super jealous, super pissed, because no one was focusing on her in the night. No one was focusing on her during the night. So she says she's going to take over the world, and they have this huge battle over attention, over significance, over importance about who should, rule the world. And she tries to fight and make it nighttime forever, which doesn't work. They have this huge battle, and Celestia traps her in the moon for 1,000 years. And so this is like the 1,000th year of this happening. And so that's why this sunset celebration is important, because it's the 1,000th one, which is when the Mare on the Moon is supposed to come out and come back to the world, right? So she sends her over to work on getting everything set up for the party, and specifically, there's 5 other ponies from the 5 other ponies that are here, and they're all working on their individual parts of the event, right? So Twilight, when she was in Canterlot, she didn't really have any friends whatsoever. All she would do is every single day, she'd just study and work, and she didn't really interact with anyone whatsoever, which kind of sucked. And so for her, she was totally isolated from other people, and she was completely focused on her work and had absolutely no care for working with other people or having friendship or groups or anything like that, which was super interesting. So when she comes over to Ponyville, she has to go to each of these people, right? And as she starts to meet everybody, what happens is, so she gets into town flying in on this chariot that's flown by 2 Pegasus that have wings. So she's a unicorn, she doesn't have wings. So she gets flown into town. So she's already positioned herself as an authority. She's positioned herself as someone that's an outsider coming into this new world. And it kind of signifies her being totally different and having no experience with this. So she gets dropped off in this chariot. And as soon as she comes down, she's totally awkward because she's never been in front of anyone before, right? And so she starts to walk around and run into these other 6 or the other 5 ponies. And at the first, she's totally just blown away because she has no social skills, right? So she's just getting knocked back and forth. And she's got this huge checklist of things that she wants to actually check. And what's interesting is she focuses so much on the checklist that she totally ignores all the people around her. She doesn't focus on what matters. She doesn't focus on the people that she should be caring about and who want to care about her. And so, it happens so much where you focus on the task instead of the group. And she was zoomed in way too close on what she needed to get done, the huge, all the stuff that had to get checked off. She didn't focus on what actually mattered, which were the people, the ponies that were doing it. So she starts to go and go and go to each of these. And they start to meet each other. They start to develop the characters, and everyone's doing their thing. You have pretty much everyone just setting up clouds. They have to, like the Pegasus, they fly around and they'll move the weather. There's no like normal weather. And they're, Rarity, she's sewing stuff. They're just doing, the little chores to get ready for the celebration. And so she rushes through everything and she checks everything. And everyone tries to befriend her, but she just kind of passes through all of them and just ignores most of them, which kind of sucks. And it shows that at the beginning, she's really starting at ground zero. She's got no friends whatsoever. And so at the end of the night, she goes over. She's got this new house in Ponyville. It's like a tree house. So she goes, into her home, and the lights are dark. She turns on the lights. And like the entire town is inside of her house because everyone wants to befriend her. Everyone wants to be nice to her. And she is just freaking out. She has no clue what's going on. And so she gets home, and she's got Spike, right? She's got her little dragon assistant guy. And Spike's having a huge time. They're having fun. They're having a huge party for everybody, thrown by Pinkie Pie, which is super fun. And she just, grouches through it, walks through it, and she's having none of it, just out. And as everyone starts to cheer and have a fun time, she goes up into her room, right? She goes away into her room and just isolates herself from everyone, which is just crazy. So she has no chance to get in front of people, no chance to grow with people. She's focusing exclusively on what she wants instead of trying to connect with the group and do something greater than herself. And we'll see kind of how that develops in just a moment. But the important thing to realize here is that she has no inclination to make friends. This is where a lot of people start. This is where I was a long, long, long time ago. And she was just on her own. And we'll see how that works out in a minute. But what's cool is she goes through the party, and as she goes upstairs into her room, she's looking at this moon, and she's got her books, and she's like, oh, I hope it's not true. I hope the world doesn't end, which would be the best situation. And she's sitting there, she's just glinting the moon, and she's like, dude, this is not good. So everyone finishes up their huge party, and they have a transition over to this big group event, and it's like the sunset celebration. So they have their celebration, and at the celebration they have kind of the mayor come out on this stage, and everyone's down here. And then what happens is, so this is on the right, you can see this is what Princess Luna normally looks like, but on the left is what she comes out as. So she's like this huge devil monster that's just like destroying everything, and oh my god. So she flies out of the sky because the sun sets. So sunsets, and so she pops out of the sky, abducts the mayor, and then takes over this whole celebration. And she's like, didn't you guys know who I am? And Twilight is the only one who has any clue what's going on. And if she could have just communicated that earlier to everyone there, they probably could have done something about the situation. But she didn't, right? She stayed alone. She stayed by herself. And she didn't, try to actually bring the group together. Instead, she isolated herself. And so she was the only person who actually knew what was going on. And so as this big evil monster, she kills a bunch of these, or knocks away a bunch of the guards, and pushes everyone aside, destroys a lot of the foundation. And she's basically she's establishing that she's ridiculously powerful. And so that's sort of where the first episode ends. And it's where we realize that there can be massive conflict if you don't connect people, if you don't give them, or knock down this wall and give them a reason to care, give them a reason to listen. She started out completely alone. Her only mentor in life was gone, and she had to go into this new situation. And so often, new situations scare us away from focusing on others, but that's really the most important time to do that. And that's kind of exactly what happens later in this episode. So with that said, we'll go to part 2. So in part 2, now we start to actually get these guys working together, which is great. So, this goes down, and then she escapes, she goes away. And Twilight goes back home, And instead of everyone being in her house, everyone leaves because they went to the celebration. So it's just Twilight here, and she's kind of freaking out, trying to figure out what the heck's going on. What do I do? There's like this giant monster taking over the world. And what's interesting is these 5 ponies, right, that she was meeting over here, and that were here with her in the celebration, they walk into her home, and they say, look, you know what's up. We don't really have any clue what's going on, but can we help you? Can we work on this? Can we grow as a team? Can we do this together? And they take the initiative to get in front of more people, to get together as a team and work to defeat, this evil, it's a symbol, right? But they want to do it together. And so originally, Twilight is like freaked out. She's like, no, I got this. I don't need any help. But so often, it's difficult to sort of admit that, maybe I'm not right. Maybe this isn't the best course of action. Some of the top CEOs, executives, whatever, they say they're right 75% of the time. People on Wall Street, maybe they're right 55% of the time, and they make millions of dollars, right? And so, to think that you're always right, people aren't always right. And so she starts to question, well, is she really right here? And she does something smart, instead of pushing them away, she just says, okay, well, here's the situation. And so you just kind of have to take a step back and, especially in heated times like this, just focus on what's actually happening in the situation instead of just trying to push yourself away, trying to avoid everyone. It's so much more effective to embrace them, and 10 times easier as soon as you can do that. So that's sort of exactly what happens. They come together as a group, and all of a sudden, they're working as a team. All of a sudden, they are a group. So they come back, they group up, and they say, all right, well, we got to go to the forest. I'm pretty sure she's in this big castle in the forest, which is exactly where she is. And so they decide that they're going to go to this giant castle. And so they go through the list. They say, okay, here are the facts. Here's what's up. And she's going to be at this castle. So they go as a group, and they go through this forest. And as they start to go through the forest, all of a sudden you start to develop the personality. You start to develop the characters. More importantly, they have sort of a bond, right? Like that's how you get to this magic. This is at the end, right? So as they're going through this forest, each of them finally have like their first chance to express who they are, to express their strengths and focus on their strengths, which complement each other. It's 6 people or 6 ponies, right? So if each of them have, one core strength, and then you break up those strengths, it creates a much stronger unit, a much stronger force, because each of them can focus exclusively on their peak ability, on what they're best at, instead of the craft that they're not good at. And so as they start to go through this huge forest, they have a ton of challenges, and the evil Midnight Mare, she goes and sets traps. She has this huge bridge they have to go over, and Rainbow Dash has to fly across and secure it. And she gets tempted. She really wants to be a Wonderbolt, right? Which is just like this huge group of Pegasus that just fly around, and they're like basically the NFL. They're a huge sports team, and she gets tempted by these fake people that are telling her to abandon her friends and come and join them. And she says no. She stays with the group. She stays with everyone that's on this mission, because they have this end in mind. They have this goal that they're working towards, and the way that they get there is by completely ignoring crap that it was a distraction, right? And so that happens throughout. You see these characters, they start to show their strengths. They have like this huge lion that comes out and tries to attack everybody, and so you have the yellow one, Fluttershy. She goes and she tames the lion because she's really good with animals. Same thing with Pinkie Pie. She focuses on the one thing that so many people ignore, which is laughter and smiling. Like so powerful. And yet, anyway, so it's this really dark and like spooky forest, right? And so to get everyone started, to get everyone going, she busts out into song and starts screaming about smiling and being happy and laughing away the fear, laughing away the negativity. And that's exactly what she does. She totally gets rid of the doubt that these guys had, and everybody comes together to push through this force, to push through this event without any fear, without any hassle, because this one character, Pinkie Pie, sings this huge song about laughing and smiling. And so it's just this huge takeaway of abolishing doubt, abolishing fear, and completely crushing any sense of sadness, any sense of personal disarray. So as you're going through situations just like these guys are going through, it's like a huge forest, and they have to overcome, sea monsters. And the way they do that, Reard, she cuts off her tail to give to this huge sea monster, so he's happy and lets him go across the river by being generous to him. And so this is not something that just one person could have done. They all had to be in this group with their strengths to make it to the end. And so they get to the end, and they get to this castle, and they unite together, and they realize that they are strong only as a team. And so they have, they find these magic necklaces. You can kind of see they've got like gems in them. They're called the Elements of Harmony. Not a huge deal, but you're going to see them a lot, and that's kind of what's on her head too. They have these elements, and so they put them on, and they go through this sequence. They go through what we just went through, and they realize how they fought together, how they went through this as a group. And they realize that they have this magic inside of them. And so that's exactly what kind of channels through, and that's why you can kind of see her face blowing up. This is where they've got, the super dangerous, deadly guy, deadly pony. And so they come together, and they just launch this huge rainbow thing at her face, and they explode her, which is pretty crazy. And then she, dies sort of, but she comes back, and she just becomes Luna, which is the normal pony. And, she's weak on the ground, and these guys have triumphed. They've come together as a team. They've leveraged the power, the magic of their friendship, and they've created this new situation where, the evil person's just laying there, and they're all over here. And then what happens is Celestia comes in, and she comes beside her sister, because remember, they're sisters. And she picks her up off the ground and says, "My sister, it has been, 1,000 years since she was banished." And she realizes that instead of punishing Luna for, trying to take over the world again, trying to kill everybody, instead of, putting her back in jail or putting her back in the moon or crushing her hopes of success, what she does is she picks up her sister, takes her in her arm, and forgives her. And they come together, they're crying together. And all she wanted the whole time was to be back with her sister and to be friends again. And that's sort of exactly what happens. In this scene, they reunite and they decree that they're stronger together than apart, and that they should work together to make the world a better place, which is exactly what happens from this point on for the rest of the show. And it all starts right here with them reuniting and the main six meeting, and these are really going to be the biggest character groups for the rest of the series.